Well, each month we take the time to talk about something that isn't always easy to discuss, and that is addiction. And you don't have to suffer any longer, nor do you have to watch someone you love continue down that downward spiral. There is wonderful help available. Greg Hanley and Daniel Baldwin with SOBA Recovery are back, along with the lovely Miss USA 2006 and recovery advocate Tara Connor. Hi, guys.
Hi, Mama.
Morning.
It's good to see
It's
y'all.
good to see you too.
I love when you're here. And I love talking trending topics with you because, you know, you guys, you offer some really good insight. And a few days ago, Tom Petty's autopsy report came out.
Yeah.
And they said the cause of death was accidental overdose. He had been taking several pain medications, including fentanyl and oxycodone, to treat a fractured hip and some other issues that he had been dealing with for years and years and years. Were you surprised at all to hear this? I know that Daniel, you and Greg both have kind of a different take on the Tom Petty situation.
Jane, you ignorant slut. Go ahead. Don't you remember that? Don't you remember that from Saturday Night Live?
No.
Oh, I guess we didn't get the reference, huh?
Oh boy.
Go ahead, Tom.
So I thought he had a bad hip.
Yeah.
And, you know, you can get, if you have a broken hip, you can get any painkiller you want.
Right.
You know, when it shows fentanyl in there, 3 different types, then usually that's somebody giving you something else. So,
Extra.
But the minute when it happened, it's kind of like a lot of these unexpected things. If it doesn't say it's a heart attack the day of, then it's usually an overdose.
Yeah.
Well, I tweeted out the day it happened was October, I think 2nd. I know it was right before my birthday. And I said a term that's used in the 12-step program, more will be revealed, is what I tweeted. R.I.P. Tom Petty, more will be revealed. I knew right away. And I'll tell you why, because they did exactly what Greg said. If it was a massive stroke or a massive heart attack, there would have been hemorrhage or something. They would have led you to believe that within a day or two, and they didn't. But when you look at, you know, I've listened to people tell us, you know, well, you know, he had an actual broken hip and the pain level of that. You know what? There's a certain amount of time if he was, you know, with 5 tour dates left and he's just going to get through it to go. But he did 53 tour dates.
He didn't slow down.
Well, but that tells me, my guess is someone liked the effect of 3 different fentanyls and oxycodone. So, because he certainly had the access to go get surgery and get done whatever he wanted. He's Tom Petty.
Well, so. I also think that anytime that we have a celebrity that overdoses of any kind, whether it's Prince or Tom Petty or what have you, a lot of times we want to say it's accidental. We want to say that, like, oh no, like they had a broken hip and they took too much or they were overprescribed, and they want to blame it on someone, because even in death, there's a stigma to this disease.
Well, it was massive. They called it a massive overdose.
Right. So let's look at that for a second. This is why my argument is there was an effect that was desired here. This was not, he broke his hip on Monday, and by Friday he was taking a lot of medication to get through. This had been going on for months. So by the time he got to this level where he was just banging down that many pills, granted, he might have really been in pain, but by that, he had been doing it for a long time. Greg will tell you, because I'll never forget, he said something, someone said to Greg, Daniel doesn't look that great. Is he okay right now? And Greg goes, trust me, if Daniel relapsed, you would know.
It wouldn't be a secret.
So there's a truth to that. With this guy, there had to have been months of behavior that changed and turned. Why didn't anybody? Yeah, why didn't anybody?
Everybody's so afraid to say anything to celebrities.
You have yes men all surrounding you. No one ever says, "Hey, something's up with you."
Yeah, I have a viewer right now that's saying it's because they make too much money or they have too much money. And I mean, honestly, money or not, this disease doesn't discriminate. When I had no money, it was still easy for me to get oxycodone and fentanyl at 16.
Yeah. Well, I'm just sad. I mean, what a loss.
She was pretty, and it was a little harder for us.
She is beautiful. She still is.
She was stone cold. Pretty.
And the weather today. It's chilly here.
It is. Like, I know. Are you surprised? Is that what you did when you got here?
Yeah, as soon as I got off the plane.
I missed it. I wasn't there.
Yeah, it was
missed
chilly.
the inside joke.
He's gonna jump the ball.
I'm leaving it.
Poor Rocky. She's like, what's is wrong with you people?
A lot.
So I also want to talk a little bit, since it is January. You guys have heard of dry January, right? You have the giggles right now. Greg is about to burst. He's giggling.
We had a bet who could get in on the show.
Oh, and you got it in first.
I got it in first.
Of course you did. Of course. I'm so sad I missed these flights.
What is dry
I really would love to be
January?
with y'all. Okay, so dry January, and you may have seen it on social media, but it's when people say, I'm going to detox from drinking. I'm not
Right.
going to drink in January at all. Some people saying this is a good thing. Other people saying, really, what's the point?
Because then you can get to Freaky February.
There you go.
And
go all
do it
out.
all over again.
It's a freaky February.
But I would think that maybe, and I have friends who have done this. They, and they don't have a problem. They just, drink socially, and they do the dry January, and then they can't believe how good they feel.
Right.
They feel so energized and alive and focused, and then they say, "Well, I really don't want to drink because I feel so much better this way."
Right.
So there's that
I
benefit.
did that 13 years ago.
I didn't.
And
It wasn't just for January, though.
no, it was for
No,
December.
Oh, okay.
And no, and like you said, I felt good, so I thought I'd do it
Yeah.
one more month.
Yeah.
And then I felt good, so I decided, you know what, I'm going to try this for 6 months.
Yeah.
And 13 years later, I'm
Yeah.
still working up to whatever
Feeling
it's gonna
better
be.
with that
Yeah.
no alcohol thing.
Yeah.
It works.
So I think it's a good thing, right?
yeah.
Yeah, if you
sure.
think you feel good after dry January, try dry February.
I will say
true.
this though, if you're feeling messed up on the inside or if your emotions start getting out of whack, that's something to look into.
Okay.
Just saying.
Thing to keep in mind.
a good
You
point.
guys do not go anywhere. We will be right back. More with SOBA after the break. And we are back with SOBA Recovery, everyone. And we always talk about your publication, Recovery Today, Greg. And on the cover is baseball great Darryl Strawberry. And Daniel, you actually interviewed him. Yes, I figured that's why you were wearing
Black
that.
Yankees.
Pow, pow. But you interviewed him, and
I
it was a great interview, and we learned so much
What a
about
great
him.
honor. He was.
Yeah.
People don't realize sometimes how much influence a celebrity can have on you. Somebody like Darryl Strawberry. I remember the cover of Sports Illustrated, the straw that stirs the Mets, they called him. He owned that city for about 5 years.
Yeah.
He was that dynamic a character.
He talks about also just his life growing up and the trauma that he would experience as a young boy. And I believe we have a clip from your interview, and I want to show that to our
Great.
viewers.
So I was already young. I was already smoking marijuana because we call it the marijuana maintenance. You started at the age of 13, 14 years old and drinking Coke 45s early. And I really never had a chance to deal with what was really happening on the inside. I mean, I was 6'6", everybody said, well, he's going to be a great baseball player from the outside. But the insides were broken, and if you never get to that place of healing the inside of who you are, eventually in your life somewhere, the destructive behavior will come, and it will play out. And mine was no different than any other addict that has that particular problem. Later on in our life, well, you start at a younger age, but later on in your life, the real behaviors come and you get lost. You get completely lost. And I think a lot of times people think and look back and say, well, how could you get lost when you've been so successful?
You guys always talk about the fact that when there's an addiction, there's such a deeper rooted cause. And he talked about his childhood. He had an alcoholic father who would come home, who would abuse the children, who would abuse their mother. He said at one point, we almost killed, the boys got together, we almost killed him to make it stop. And he says that's where it started. That was his escape.
What
Yeah,
a
The
gentleman
marijuana
he
and
was,
the drinking.
too, when we met him. He drove an hour and a half through traffic to get over to
Drove
do
himself.
the interview, and then it was going to be 2 hours to get back. And he was just a gentleman and gracious and glad to get back. I've got a lot of respect for him, outside of the baseball.
And I think that he is a great guy, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard him speak before. But what was I going to say? With the trauma that he's talking about,
Yeah.
I do think that behind every alcoholic, there's an underlying issue. And trauma is a part of most people's stories. Like, even if you come from a great family with awesome parents who are like go-getters and whatever, like sometimes that can traumatize someone as well. So we all
much pressure.
Right. So we all have our own form of trauma, but the only way that you can get addicted to alcohol or drugs is if you take it enough to develop some type of an allergy.
And trauma doesn't have to be a massive
Right.
incident. It can be somebody was late picking you up at the baseball
Right.
park when you were 8 and
Yep.
it was dark.
Yeah.
You know, or it can be anything.
And something that may traumatize one person may not do it to another person.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's everyone's journey.
Well, we do EMDR therapy, which is, it was designed for the Vietnam veterans, and it allows you to take a look at your trauma and then change the caption on it. And I tried it. Anything that we do, I try myself just to see how it works. And I was really surprised to see what was bothering me was not what I thought was bothering me.
Really?
Right.
It may be something else.
Yeah.
It may be something
Yeah,
else.
completely different.
What else did you take away from that time with him, Daniel?
The thing that struck me most was our commonality about our childhood, and not so much that my father was drinking and doing whatever, but just that we had trauma. We had, and I, nothing compared to him success-wise, but we had success in our careers. And no matter how much success I had, no matter how much I tried to fill it with drugs, alcohol, women, clothes, cars, you know, I just poured so much into that big pot, and it was never enough. And that was the thing that we had in common. He was Darryl Strawberry, the premier home run hitter in all of baseball, and no matter how much, there was never a rock of cocaine big enough.
Right.
There was never a woman who was hot enough.
Right.
It didn't matter. You could not fill that cup.
All right, well, we're going to take a quick break. We have so many viewer questions that we want to get to. They have sent us their questions on Facebook, and we will get to some of those after the break.
People think courage is simply walking through fear. Courage is not running from yourself. I believed getting sober meant I would lose my edge. Turns out, I was wrong. I only surrendered the things that were holding me back. But all those fears I've faced over the years pale in comparison to the courage it took me to get sober. When you think your world is falling apart, it's actually coming together. I have found my freedom and will do anything to protect it. And so can you.
That was really good, Greg Hanley.
Yeah, Greg
Thanks.
Hanley.
Produced that.
Yeah, my
For SOBA.
team, his name is Colin Scummy Morrison, and he was, Metal Militia and motorcycle jumper. He's like one of those guys that you see doing all that stuff. And
I always wonder who those guys were. Now I know.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's cool. He does some interviews for a lot of people on Recovery Today. It's become a real good part of the team.
I remember now. You've mentioned him before.
Yeah, we had-
now I'm recalled. That makes
Yeah,
sense.
he was on the cover of Recovery Today.
I remember. Do y'all want to get to viewer questions?
Yes.
Yeah, you
We have a
interviewed him.
lot.
I did.
Yeah.
Oh, you did?
I sure did.
Oh, that's why you know so much about it.
I do.
Okay.
Hi,
I'm
Colin.
I'm going to get to our first one. So this is off of Facebook, you guys. The viewer says, I'm 23 years old. Alcoholism runs in my family. I've always been a non-drinker, knowing my family history. How likely am I to carry the, quote, addiction gene, so to speak, if one of my parents and one of my grandparents were alcoholics? So tell me, is there such a thing as this addiction gene? Or, I mean, probably not what it's called, but I know people, you know, if you have a family history of it,
For sure.
are you more likely?
Well, are you Irish?
Well, I am not. Actually, I'm a little Irish. I mean, are you okay? Well,
you-
girl.
Yeah.
You know, it's very likely. My son hadn't had a drink, and he just says, "Man, I don't want to risk it."
he didn't
Right.
even want to ever start.
No, yeah, he doesn't want to risk it.
Yeah.
And so there's certainly a way to find out, and you can take a drink and find
Yeah.
out you made a bad mistake.
Yikes.
Or you could not and just have an easy life.
Yeah. Be energized and more focused,
Yeah,
like we were
more
talking
energy.
about.
Yeah, if you hadn't done it yet, I would take the
Yeah,
high
like
road.
why take the chance?
You're living a good life. Okay, here is our next question. And I've been in recovery twice for an addiction to painkillers. I've recently found out that I will have to undergo invasive surgery, and the pain following the procedure will require some type of pain medication. How will I get through this without ending up right where I was before?
Well, that depends on that specific viewer. I mean, there are tools that help us get through things. If I break my arm, I'm going to have to go on some type of a pain medication.
So what do you do?
And, well, you know, you get around your foundation. I would contact people like Greg or Daniel and be like, here, I need you to administer my pills.
Right.
Don't let me have them on my own. Even at 11 years sober, like, it's not worth the risk.
Of course not.
And so, you know, when you have that team of support around you, you can't go wrong, but you can, if you're triggering the allergy, as long as you're trying to stay active and have your foundation to hold you during that time, it's okay.
Having a game plan.
Yeah.
To it.
And there's another factor here. I remember when I was so worried when I had my neck surgery, and they said, well, you know, you're going to be in this collar and you're going to be in the hospital for 3 days after. And I remember laying there in the hospital, I looked at the guy and I said, just turn it up twice as much and twice as fast. I said, and if you do that, when I walk out of here, I won't take a single painkiller. And he went, yeah, you'd never be. I went, no, I will be able to leave. And I never took a single painkiller 3 days after the surgery. And you know what? You absolutely can tolerate certain levels of pain.
Right.
We live in such a coddled society that any kind of pain is there to tell you something.
Right.
So if you move too abruptly when you've had a neck surgery 4 or 5 days later, and you start to feel pain, stop moving that way. That's your body telling you you're
Like
doing
it hurts
too
when
much.
I do this.
Danger.
Stop doing that.
Right. If it hurts when you breathe, then you might want to take a look at it. But there's Toradol and all kinds of other non-narcotic medications. For this viewer, I hear you, but there's other alternate
And let
ways.
the doctor know the big.
You're
Right.
Sometimes
Let
the
the
big
doctor
difference
For
is
sure.
letting the doctor,
Yeah.
letting the dentist. I met a guy that had 29 years clean and got some wisdom teeth pulled and ended up back on the heroin
From
like 2 weeks
wisdom
later.
to
Yeah,
painful.
from getting the pills.
So not worth it. Okay, we have about a minute and a half, but I want to get to one more, you guys. This viewer says, I was busted for a DUI over the holidays. It was a major wake-up call for me. I realized I have a problem. I've had enough. How do I manage to get that under control but still go out and have a good time every now and then?
First of all, sign up for ride sharing.
Yeah, what do I do? What do I do?
I think that there's a misconception that when you get sober, your life is over and there's no fun to be had. It's just like fun be gone. Instant fun be
I'm
gone.
having the best time ever.
Yeah,
The
I
best time.
mean, we are insane, but if you see that you have a problem and you're like, but I want to still go out, go out and run it
Without
until
the
the
drink.
wheels fall off. No, drink your face off until you see that you might have an issue.
No, but you know what will
But
really
don't drive.
But don't drive.
No.
what
Please don't
will
drive.
really keep you sober? Go out and don't drink. And clock
And
the
look
peop-
at all the other
clock
people.
the people at 7 o'clock, clock them at 9, clock them at
it gets
11.
ugly,
And then
guys.
at 1, it's ugly.
It's ugly. It is
And
not
you're like,
cute.
there's
you
no
were
way
one
I
of
look
them.
like that.
Yeah?
I
Yeah.
would never do that.
I saw a girl the other night that I was going. I bet she was pretty 4 hours ago.
We had a
just got sloppy.
girl the other night that was working at an event.
Oh, yeah.
And she was lying on the table, you know, that when the hand distangles because she's out. And we're going, do you want us to take her to the hospital? You know, the police were like, yeah, no, we got her sister coming. But and then we heard the ambulance coming, we were leaving. And I saw the girl 4 hours before that. She was fine. She was all charming and lovely.
I gave my card to the cops. I go, when the sister gets here, if this kind of goes on a lot, maybe it'd be a good idea for her to come.
Yeah,
for
bring
sure.
her in.
All right, guys, we are going to let you know what you can do today if you feel you have a problem, if you have someone you really love that you're worried about, then what you can do today, like within the next 5 minutes, that could save their life or maybe yours. We'll be right back. And we are back with Sober Recovery, and we're going to do something a little different this time, Alex, right? So if someone needs to get help or if they have a loved one they want to get help for, they can text you now. So they don't have to necessarily make a phone call.
Yeah, it's not a marketing gimmick or anything. I personally like to text. It's hard sometimes. You have so many activities going on that it's hard to hold the phone up to your head.
Right.
You know, you need Bluetooth,
Yes.
life that has so many things going on. So yeah, we're trying something different because we've learned that people save our phone number. I always say it starts with a phone call, but they save our number and then they reach out 2 months later. So there's a number on the screen. We're going to try a text us.
Right.
Jane and other people are sitting by, so you can just send a text, help, send me more info, I'd like to know what to do. And there's the number right there on the screen. Yeah, give us
Or
a
direct
text.
message Daniel Baldwin.
Or
Directly.
direct message
They will
Tara
respond.
Sarah
Connor.
Connor.
We will respond.
It's the greatest email of all for sobriety.
Yeah.
BaldwinHelp@iCloud.com.
Is that what you have?
BaldwinHelp@iCloud.com.
And I love that you
Because
guys
I'll help you.
respond to everybody.
That's awesome.
That's what you're here for. And I like the texting idea because I think people they don't feel as comfortable maybe making the phone call. They feel
At
a little
all.
more
We were
there's
at
privacy.
we were
to
at the center
texting.
last night, and somebody who was sitting there, who has been in, said, "That was me, Greg. That sent you a very, very long email." And Greg goes, "Yeah, I got it." And
Yeah,
you know,
it was
Well,
a
we
direct
live in a
message.
generation where we're all behind our phones anyway,
Yeah.
and it's people are terrified just to speak on the phone. Like
What is
dating,
that?
the worst. It's like, hello, text me.
You can just text something short like "Hi,"
Hi.
and
Yeah.
somebody will respond.
Help.
Okay.
Just get a
Period.
conversation going.
And SOBA Texas is open.
It's open.
yeah,
Okay.
people
And
can
then-
come by and do a
Malibu,
tour.
if you want to get over to the beach.
Have that beautiful view. There's that too.
Mm-hmm.
So again, text right now, guys. The number is there on your screen. You can also always call
732-474-6456. SOBANewJersey.com.
The thing to do today is make the call or send the text.
Yep.
All right, guys. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks
It's
for
good
having
to see
us.
ya.
Good to see ya.
And y'all have a great day.
It's not cold. It was cold today.
That's a monkey.